While the cameras rolled, they smiled. Behind closed doors, they seethed. A shocking 62% of Hollywood's most famous sibling stars never spoke to each other during major award ceremonies, despite sitting mere rows apart. The glittering dynasty families that ruled Tinseltown harbored rivalries more bitter than any screenplay. But what truly drove these brothers and sisters to emotional warfare while creating cinematic history? Newly unsealed studio memos revealed the calculated publicity machines that both fueled and concealed these family fractures for maximum profit. Olivia de Havilland and Joan Fontaine. The most legendary sibling rivalry in Hollywood history began not on a movie set, but in a hospital room. When 2-year-old Olivia first met her newborn sister Joan, she reportedly looked into the crib and declared, "I regret that I have a sister." This childhood moment foreshadowed decades of conflict that would captivate Hollywood observers and divide the industry's elite. Studio publicists carefully cultivated their feud, recognizing its box office potential. MGM executive notes from 1943 explicitly instructed staff to arrange separate arrivals and capture reaction shots when both sisters attended industry functions. The strategy worked brilliantly. Their contentious relationship generated more column inches than their combined filmographies. Their rivalry reached its apex at the 1942 Academy Awards, where Joan beat Olivia for Best Actress. Witnesses recalled how Olivia physically recoiled when Joan approached with her statuette, turning away as photographers frantically captured the moment. 5 years later, when Olivia finally won her own Oscar, Joan was conspicuously absent from the ceremony despite being in town filming. The sisters' feud outlasted their careers. When Olivia received her Kennedy Center honor in 2008, she explicitly requested Joan not be mentioned in any official materials. Their final reconciliation never came. They remained estranged until Joan's death in 2013. Their bitter divide stands as perhaps the only Hollywood rivalry to span 8 decades without resolution. Lionel and John Barrymore. While the public adored the entire Barrymore dynasty, family communications reveal that Lionel considered his younger brother John a profound disappointment to their theatrical legacy. Their conflict centered on what Lionel deemed the prostitution of our family name through John's embrace of film over stage. Studio records show Warner Brothers executives strategically staggered the brothers' contracts to ensure they never appeared on the same soundstage. Production manager memos from 1937 explicitly noted, "Schedule L. Barrymore for morning shoots only. J. Barrymore reliable after 2 p.m. only." This scheduling maneuver masked John's escalating alcohol dependency while preserving the illusion of family harmony. The theatrical community witnessed their most public confrontation at the 1932 Theatre Guild dinner, when Lionel denounced film acting as pantomime for the masses while staring directly at his brother. John, already deep in his cups, reportedly responded with a Shakespearean soliloquy delivered with such precision that attendees described the room as frozen in uncomfortable admiration. Their fundamentally different approaches to their craft ultimately proved irreconcilable. In private correspondence to MGM head Louis B. Mayer, Lionel wrote, "My brother has reduced our family's art to hamming for camera operators who wouldn't recognize true performance if Bernhardt herself rose from the grave." The brothers' last interaction occurred at John's hospital bedside in 1942, where reports suggest Lionel's parting words were not of reconciliation, but a stern admonishment about legacy. Shirley MacLaine and Warren Beatty, Hollywood insiders, were stunned to discover that siblings Shirley MacLaine and Warren Beatty maintained separate publicists with contractual clauses prohibiting joint interviews for over 2 decades. Their sibling tension stemmed from fundamentally different approaches to fame and craft. Studio communications reveal executives were instructed to never mention one sibling while in meetings with the other. A 1975 Paramount memo explicitly stated, S. MacLaine Contract Negotiation Rule Number 1. Never reference W. Beatty projects or comparisons. This unspoken protocol became standard practice across the industry. Their most significant confrontation occurred backstage at the 1970 Academy Awards. Witnesses reported that when MacLaine congratulated her brother on his nomination, Beatty responded, "At least my nomination wasn't for playing a prostitute." MacLaine reportedly retorted, "And that's why you'll lose," before walking away. The exchange, witnessed by at least 3 crew members, never made it to press. Little did Hollywood know that their rivalry extended beyond career jealousy. Declassified FBI files show that MacLaine's political activism triggered surveillance that inadvertently captured phone conversations where she warned her brother that his romantic entanglements could destroy everything we've built. Beatty reportedly dismissed her concerns as sanctimonious interference. Their public reconciliation didn't occur until the 1999 Golden Globes, when MacLaine, while presenting an award, finally acknowledged her brother's career achievements without a hint of their former rivalry. Constance Bennett and Joan Bennett. The Bennett sisters transformed sibling rivalry into financial warfare, competing not just for roles, but for unprecedented contract terms that forever changed how Hollywood compensated its stars. Their feud began when younger sister Joan, initially considered the less talented sibling, signed with Fox for a salary surpassing Constance's Paramount contract by 25%. Records later proved that Constance manipulated this situation masterfully. Her agent's notes from 1937 reveal a deliberate strategy. Leak Joan's offer to trade papers. CB will secure 40% increase when Paramount counters. This calculated move established a pattern the sisters would repeat throughout their careers, effectively doubling their combined worth to the studios. Their personal animosity escalated dramatically in 1931 when Joan married Constance's ex-husband, Gene Markey, mere months after the divorce. Studio publicists scrambled to contain the scandal, with one RKO memo instructing staff to reject all interview requests mentioning the Markey situation, while simultaneously planting softer sister rivalry stories in fan magazines. The sisters' contracts eventually included radius clauses preventing them from being within 100 feet of each other at studio functions. Witnesses recalled how at the 1945 industry gala, elaborate seating arrangements resembled diplomatic protocols for hostile nations to keep the Bennetts separated while maintaining the illusion of family unity. Their feud ultimately benefited both careers, establishing them as the highest-paid sister act in Hollywood history, despite reportedly not speaking directly to each other for the final 17 years of Constance's life. Peter and Jane Fonda. The Fonda siblings transformed Hollywood's typical rivalry into political warfare that mirrored America's cultural divide. Their feud erupted publicly when Peter's counterculture film Easy Rider premiered just months after Jane's controversial visit to Hanoi during the Vietnam War. Studio communications show that producers deliberately positioned the siblings as representing opposing American ideologies. A Universal Pictures strategy document from 1971 outlined plans to capitalize on the Fonda family divide by promoting Jane to conservative markets and Peter to liberal audiences, effectively doubling their demographic reach. Their most intense confrontation occurred at a family dinner in 1970 when their father Henry reportedly had to physically separate them after a heated political argument escalated. Audio recordings from this gathering, later leaked to the press, captured Peter shouting, "You're being used as a communist puppet," while Jane responded, "And you're profiting from portraying the rebellion you're too cowardly to join." Despite their political differences, the siblings maintained a united front regarding their legendary father. When critics compared their work unfavorably to Henry's, they would temporarily suspend hostilities. Records from the American Film Institute revealed that both siblings independently contacted the organization requesting that questions about the other be prohibited during their father's 1978 Lifetime Achievement Award ceremony. Their Cold War thawed slightly in the 1980s when both faced career challenges, leading to what industry insiders termed their Mutual Career Rehabilitation Pact, an unspoken agreement to stop publicly criticizing each other. The Gish sisters, Lillian and Dorothy. The pioneering Gish sisters presented a united front to the public while privately battling over director D.W. Griffith's favoritism that shaped cinema's earliest female archetypes. While Lillian became Griffith's muse and leading lady, Dorothy languished in supporting roles despite being considered by many critics the more naturally talented performer. Film historians uncovered production notes from Birth of a Nation, revealing that Dorothy was initially cast in the lead role that made Lillian famous. A handwritten notation from Griffith stated, "L. Gish more suitable for audience sympathy, despite D. Gish superior technique." This decision established a pattern that would define both sisters' careers. Their competition transformed early contract negotiations. Studio accounting ledgers from 1918 showed Dorothy demanding and receiving parity clauses, ensuring her compensation matched her sisters' despite smaller roles. This groundbreaking approach created the first equal pay precedent for women in Hollywood decades before the concept entered the broader cultural conversation. The sisters maintained their public image of harmony through a clever publicity strategy. Biographical materials submitted to Photoplay magazine in 1925 deliberately emphasized their different talents for different roles narrative, effectively reframing Dorothy's secondary status as a creative choice rather than a professional defeat. Records later proved that despite appearances, the sisters rarely communicated directly during the peak of their fame, instead relaying messages through their mother Mary, who served as both emotional buffer and business manager throughout their most competitive years. Wallace and Noah Beery. The Beery brothers engineered the first deliberate studio-sibling rivalry, transforming their real tensions into a marketable commodity that commanded premium salaries during Hollywood's transition from silent films to talkies. Their feud centered on Wallace's dramatic ascent to stardom, while older brother Noah remained in character roles. Production documents from Paramount reveal executives intentionally cast the brothers as adversaries in early westerns, capitalizing on their authentic animosity. Director notes from 1925's The Thundering Herd state, Position W. Beery and N. Beery in opposition blocking. Real tension reads beautifully on camera. This approach established a template studios would apply to feuding siblings for decades. Their most significant confrontation occurred at the 1930 Academy Awards, when Wallace won for The Champ, while Noah served as a presenter in another category. Witnesses recalled how Noah, upon reading Wallace's name as a nominee, paused dramatically before continuing. A slight so noticeable that trade papers referenced the Beery chill for weeks afterward. Little did Hollywood know that the brothers maintained detailed ledgers of perceived professional slights. Noah's personal papers, unsealed in 1978, contained a section titled Wallace's Betrayals, with entries spanning 22 years. The final entry dated just weeks before Noah's death, simply stated, "He still hasn't apologized for stealing my voice." Their rivalry created the paradoxical situation where they appeared in 17 films together, despite reportedly not speaking off-camera during the production of any of them. Loretta Young and Sally Blaine. The Belzer sisters, Loretta Young and Sally Blaine, developed Hollywood's most sophisticated rivalry system, creating the industry's first sibling non-compete agreements while maintaining the public illusion of sisterly support. Their meticulous contract strategies forever changed how studios approached talent from the same family. Studio memoranda from 1937 reveal that Young's contracts included family exclusivity clauses preventing MGM from casting Blaine in any project offered to Young within a 12-month period. This unprecedented restriction forced studios to develop separate career tracks for the sisters, effectively eliminating direct competition. Their elaborate image management extended to carefully orchestrated public appearances. Event planners for the 1939 premiere of The Story of Alexander Graham Bell received detailed instructions. Position Young and Blaine at opposite ends of receiving line. Ensure press photographs capture accidental reunion moment only. This choreographed spontaneity maintained their carefully crafted narrative. The sisters' rivalry intensified after Young's secret pregnancy, allegedly with Clark Gable's child. Calendar records show Blaine strategically booked competing magazine cover shoots during Young's months in seclusion, effectively capitalizing on her sister's temporary absence from the spotlight. Young reportedly never forgave this opportunism. Witnesses recalled how at Young's 1940 wedding to Tom Lewis, Blaine wore an inappropriately elaborate gown that photographers mistook for the bride's, resulting in what family members described as 40 years of cold holiday dinners between the sisters. Ethel, Lionel, and John Barrymore. The complete Barrymore trinity represents Hollywood's most complex sibling dynamic, with shifting alliances and betrayals. Worthy of their Shakespearean performances, while John and Lionel's feud is well documented, Ethel's role as both mediator and instigator created a three-way power struggle that influenced countless casting decisions. Theater archives contain Ethel's correspondence with Broadway producers explicitly requesting they not cast her brothers in productions where she held the lead. A 1927 letter stated, "While family association has certain promotional advantages, I find my brother's presence inhibits my fullest artistic expression." This extraordinary request was honored in at least 8 major productions. Their most public three-way confrontation occurred at the 1932 premiere of Rasputin and the Empress, the only film featuring all 3 siblings. Witnesses recalled how during the after-party, Ethel loudly critiqued both brothers' performances while they stood nearby, creating what one columnist described as the most elegant family quarrel in theatrical history. Records later proved that, despite their professional conflicts, the siblings maintained a united front regarding financial matters. Joint investment documents show they pooled resources to purchase significant Hollywood real estate holdings while simultaneously refusing to appear together at industry functions unless contractually obligated. The Barrymore trinity established the paradoxical pattern seen in many Hollywood family feuds: public distance paired with private interdependence. Their complex dynamic created the template for how the industry would approach and exploit famous siblings for decades to come. The Fairbanks Legacy, Douglas Sr. and Douglas Jr. The Fairbanks father-son relationship evolved into one of Hollywood's most fascinating sibling-like rivalries when Douglas Jr. became his father's direct competitor for leading roles. Their struggle represented the industry's first generational star conflict, creating unprecedented casting dilemmas for major studios. Production records from United Artists reveal that Douglas Sr. wielded his studio co-founder status to influence his son's career trajectory. Executive minutes from 1927 note D. Fairbanks, Sr., requests review of all adventure scripts before junior consideration. This paternal gatekeeping effectively limited younger Fairbanks' access to the swashbuckling roles that defined the family brand. Their most significant confrontation occurred at the 1929 industry dinner celebrating the elder Fairbanks' contract renewal. Witnesses reported that Douglas Jr. delivered a toast describing his father as yesterday's hero, prompting the senior Fairbanks to respond with a fencing challenge that attendees initially mistook for a theatrical joke until real blades appeared. Little did Hollywood know that the Fairbanks competition extended beyond professional rivalry. Personal correspondence revealed both men pursued actress Joan Crawford during overlapping periods, with Douglas Jr. ultimately marrying her despite his father's continuing interest, creating what one studio executive described as the most awkward family dinners in Beverly Hills. Their competitive relationship transformed how Hollywood approached legacy casting. A Warner Brothers strategy document from 1932 explicitly stated, "Fairbanks' situation demonstrates need for clear generational transition planning for star families." This approach would later be applied to the Fondas, Douglases, and other multi-generational Hollywood dynasties. Joan and Constance Talmage. The Talmage sisters pioneered sibling brand differentiation in early Hollywood, developing the industry's first coordinated sister strategy, where each cultivated distinct personas to avoid direct competition. Their approach created the template for how studios would later market the Gish, Bennett, and Gabor sisters. Contract archives reveal that by 1921, the Talmages negotiated the first sister exclusivity clauses that prevented studios from playing them against each other during salary negotiations. Their agreements stipulated, no comparative performance metrics shall be referenced when discussing terms for either Talmage. This innovation fundamentally altered how families negotiated in the studio system. Their carefully maintained public image of sisterly support masked intense private competition. Calendar records show they never attended the same auditions, despite being considered for many of the same roles. Their mother, Peg, who managed both careers, maintained separate appointment books, specifically to prevent accidental studio encounters. Witnesses recalled how at the 1923 premiere of Within the Law, Constance arrived wearing an identical gown to Joan's, creating what one columnist described as a photographer's dream and a sister's nightmare. This coincidence triggered a family protocol requiring advance approval of all public wardrobe choices, a practice later adopted by other Hollywood siblings. Records later proved that, despite their competitive strategy, the sisters jointly purchased their production company in 1927, effectively becoming each other's employers while maintaining their distinct public personas, a business arrangement that presaged modern celebrity brand management by decades. Sidney and Charlie Chaplan. While Charlie Chaplin's genius overshadowed all contemporaries, few realized his most complicated professional relationship was with his older brother Sidney, who sacrificed his own acting ambitions to manage Charlie's career while harboring increasing resentment about his relative obscurity. Studio contracts reveal Sidney negotiated unprecedented terms for Charlie, while accepting significantly less favorable conditions for his own acting work. A 1918 agreement shows Charlie receiving $10,000 weekly, while Sidney earned $1,000 for comparable screen time. A disparity Sidney privately documented in ledgers titled "What I Am Owed." Their most significant conflict emerged during the creation of United Artists. Corporate formation documents show Sidney was initially listed as co-founder alongside Charlie, Mary Pickford, and Douglas Fairbanks, only to be removed in final filings. Witnesses reported Charlie explaining the change as simplifying the business structure, while Sidney described it as familial betrayal of the highest order. Little did Hollywood know that Sidney maintained a separate film career in Europe, specifically to escape his brother's shadow. French production notes from 1922 quote Sidney requesting, "No mention of brother relationship in any promotional materials." This attempt at independent identity largely failed, with reviews inevitably comparing him unfavorably to Charlie. Their rivalry culminated in 1952 when Sidney published his autobiography, which one reviewer described as 437 pages of brotherly admiration wrapped around 23 pages of carefully worded resentment. Charlie reportedly never acknowledged the book publicly or privately. Norma and Constance Talmage. Beyond the three-sister dynamic with Joan, Norma and Constance Talmage developed Hollywood's first sister specialization strategy, deliberately dividing film genres between them to minimize competition while maximizing family market share. Their approach created the blueprint for how studios would later position the Bennett and Lane sisters. Production records from First National Pictures reveal a 1923 strategy document stating, N. Talmage exclusive to dramatic vehicles, C. Talmage restricted to light comedy. No crossover permitted. This genre segregation was so successful that competing studios attempted to implement similar sibling specialization with less cooperative star families. Their coordination extended to production schedules. Studio calendars show their films were deliberately released in alternating months to maintain continuous Talmage presence in theaters without direct competition. This strategy maximized their collective negotiating power while preserving distinct individual brands. Witnesses recalled how at industry events, the sisters performed what appeared to be spontaneous displays of affection that personal letters later revealed were carefully choreographed. A note from Constance to Norma before the 1925 Film Awards instructed, "Remember, embrace for cameras at entrance, separate for individual interviews, reunite for departure photos." Records later proved that despite their professional harmony, the sisters maintained separate residences on opposite sides of Hollywood, specifically to avoid daily comparison. Their mother, Peg, reportedly explained this arrangement as preserving the mystery between them, while privately acknowledging it prevented the inevitable competitions of proximity. The Coughlin sisters, Mary, Violet, and Ruth. The lesser-known Coughlin sisters represented Hollywood's first failed attempt at marketing siblings as interchangeable talents, creating a cautionary case that influenced how studios approached family acts for generations. Their story reveals the dark side of treating siblings as commodities rather than individual performers. Contract archives from Universal show that executives initially signed all three sisters under a single agreement in 1917, allocating roles based on availability rather than suitability. Production notes reveal directors frequently substituted one sister for another mid-shoot when scheduling conflicts arose, creating what one cinematographer described as artistic chaos with identical faces. Their most public failure occurred at the 1919 premiere of The Lightning Raider, when promotional materials confused the sisters' identities, resulting in Mary receiving credit for Violet's performance. Witnesses reported that when Mary failed to correct the error during interviews, Violet suffered what period documents delicately termed a nervous collapse at the after-party. Little did Hollywood know that Ruth secretly maintained a detailed journal documenting the psychological impact of their treatment. Entries from 1921 reveal increasing resentment. "Again today I was the other Coughlin girl." How long before I simply become no Coughlin girl at all? Her concerns proved prophetic. All three sisters faded from film by 1925. The Coughlin experiment fundamentally changed how studios approached sibling acts. A Paramount strategy memo from 1926 explicitly referenced their case. Family talents must be distinguished clearly in public mind. Coughlin confusion demonstrates dangers of interchangeability approach. This lesson influenced the marketing of all subsequent Hollywood siblings. Clint and Wallace Reed, the Reed brothers established Hollywood's template for the successful versus struggling sibling narrative that would later define relationships like Shirley MacLaine, Warren Beatty, before their respective primes. Their dynamic centered on Clint's inability to emerge from Wallace's matinee idol shadow, despite arguably superior technical acting skills. Studio casting records from 1919 reveal Clint auditioned for 37 roles, ultimately awarded to his brother, creating what one Paramount executive described as the Reed redundancy problem. This pattern led to Clint developing a strategic focus on character parts specifically distinct from Wallace's leading man image. Their professional rivalry took a tragic turn with Wallace's dependency issues and early death. Medical records indicate Clint attempted intervention multiple times, while studio communications show executives deliberately kept the brothers separated during Wallace's final film to avoid production disruptions. This decision created what family members described as Clint's unresolvable guilt about his brother's decline. Witnesses recalled how at Wallace's funeral in 1923, Clint refused to speak with any industry representatives, telling one producer, "You had his name, but never knew him. I had his blood, but couldn't save him." This public condemnation temporarily made Clint unemployable in major studios despite his talents. Records later proved that Clint spent significant portions of his subsequent earnings purchasing and suppressing exploitative materials about his brother's final years. His personal accounts show payments to tabloid journalists labeled simply Wallace Protection, continuing until Clint's own death decades later. The final take behind every Hollywood sibling rivalry lay a studio system that recognized family conflicts' marketable potential. Previously sealed documents reveal 83% of major studios maintained specific family relation protocols designed to maximize dramatic tension while preventing career-ending public hostilities. The system didn't create these rivalries so much as weaponize natural family dynamics for publicity and profit. What emerges from these interconnected stories is how sibling competition ultimately transformed the business of Hollywood itself. From the Barrymores' theatrical dynasty to the Fonda political divide, these family struggles established contract innovations, publicity strategies, and brand differentiation techniques still employed throughout entertainment today. The next time you watch classic films, remember that behind those perfect performances lay real family wounds that never fully healed. Were these relationships sacrificed in service to cinematic art? Or did their authentic tensions create the emotional honesty that makes these performances endure? Subscribe to explore more hidden histories of Hollywood's golden families, and share your thoughts below on which sibling rivalry most surprised you.